Hi guys, this is Simeon from Swedish Homestead. Today I want to take you in the forest for something that we do every winter. Yes, you guys have guessed it. It's time to make firewood. My brother has been in the forest for quite a few days and has been cutting firewood. And we just want to share this with you and show you real quick why we cut this kind of wood and what we do to our forest. Most of the wood that we cut here is birch for firewood. And the reason for that is that it's just the nicest wood in our area that is easy to split and it burns well, and when we have plenty of it, and when we thin out our forests we get a lot of those birch trees. A lot of these trees are quite thin and we like that. The bigger ones we actually sell to the paper factories, get some money for that, because we don't want them. They're just hard to work with, and we want to be very efficient with the birch trees that we cut down, and we want to cut down the thin ones for firewood. They're easy to split, they're easy to handle, and we save a lot of time and strength on those. Now this kind of thickness here is really the perfect thickness. That's what we want to go for, because our hydraulic splitter can split a piece into 4 pieces at once. So this, we just have to drive through there once and we get 4 pieces. It's very efficient. You know, you want to make sure that you get the most out of your time. We have a lot of thinner ones as well, because it's not worth to sell them. And okay, but this is really the perfect size. Any bigger than that, and where you have to drive them through the splitter a few times, it's very labor intensive. They're heavy to lift, and it takes a long time to split the wood. So we have the opportunity in our forest to really thin out the trees and take the right size for firewood and sell off the rest, or sometimes even mill it, even though we don't mill that much birch. Every time we cut firewood, they end up being a few spruce and pines, and they're not as easy to split, and they don't burn as long. They burn very quick and very hot though, but we don't mind that. We just get those in with the firewood. If we get more of these, we either mill the big logs, and the other ones we sell off also for the paper factories. Now the firewood is a byproduct of us thinning through and taking care of our forest, making it more productive. As we go through this forest and make it more productive by cutting away some bad trees and freeing up space for the good ones to grow better, we get a lot of birch wood left over. And that's also due to our 2nd or 2 generation forest system, where we have the pioneering trees like aspen and birch growing first, and the spruce trees grow under. You can see that here in the treetops. You have some birch trees and then you have spruce trees coming under. And so when we do this, we get exercise for our bodies, we get a more productive forest, and we get firewood to heat our houses. It is a miserable winter. Actually, it's not much of a winter at all. We have mild weather, it's muddy, and this is quite bad for the annual woodwork, forestry work that we do, where we just go inside of the forest to cut down trees, both for milling and for firewood. It's just so muddy, and no big machines can drive you for sure. They would just sink in and destroy everything. But even our quad and trailer, if it's like this is bad. And then you see the treetops my brother has piled up there so that we can chip them. Sometimes when it's really bad, we can chip it right here on the path. Most of the times we drive it out and use it to produce topsoil, compost, or use it for the garden to cover. It all turns back to soil. So after we've cut down the trees and cut them up, we do 3-meter length just because it's easy to handle. We know how much we have when it's on the pile. Sometimes the tree top, you know, if there's just a little short piece left, we make it a little longer, but 3 meters is the general length. And then when we gather it together, we just lay it on piles like this. Sometimes when it's solidly frozen on the ground, we can have these big machines come. And if it's off the ground and gathered in these bundles, this machine can just come, take one load, load it up, and it just goes very, very quickly. But even if we come with our quad trailer, it's just easy, it's the right height to just load it on the trailer quickly, to be as efficient as possible here.
So this particular piece of forest we've been working on since we bought the farm, on thinning through it, and some parts of it are getting to be really nice now, but other parts we still haven't really got the hang of it yet. And the parts we did at first, we already have to go back and thin out more, because we are always very careful when we do that. So we rather go back more often than to do too much at one time. And there's always a lot of birch trees in our forests here, and the spruces are mostly behind and come from underneath. And we like to get spruces because they pay better eventually, and those are the trees here generally that are used for timber, whereas birch is used for paperwood or pulpwood, as well as firewood. That's what we use it for. But in order for us to get more spruce into our forest, we have to allow them to come up underneath the birch trees. And time comes when the top of the spruces then actually reaches the branches of the birches, and if you don't remove the birches, they'll destroy the spruces from growing and keep them from growing upwards. So that's what we are trying to do now, is to just make more room in here. We will not cut out all the birch trees. Where there's room for them to stay, we will leave them, but we really want to try to get the spruce trees room now. Right, here we have a dead spruce tree, not a very big one, but I don't think the wood is of any use to us since it's dead. I think it's better to just leave it for some insects to live in there and grow in there. And it's good and healthy for your biodiversity in your forest to have different insects. And important for many species of insects is dead wood in your forest. And it's a difference whether there's just dead wood lying on the ground like a branch or a log that's already cut off and been left behind, versus something that's dead but still in touch with the soil through the roots, like this one here. It would have been better even for the insects and even the birds if it had been thicker, but now it is what it is. But since it's still in the ground with the roots, it stays moist in a whole different way than something that's just loosely laying on the ground. So both are important. So now I've cut out a bunch of those thin trees, and what we have left is bigger ones. And this spruce tree here that's a little bent, had that been straight I would have picked that one and then the two bigger ones behind, but now it's really bent. I don't know if you can tell from there, and so you can actually see that at some point some years ago the wind blew it in there, the root lifted, you can see it in the ground there, and then it's tried to straighten itself out again. But I think it's better to cut it away, and even the skinny spruce tree behind it there, and then to leave the two big ones with the birch, because the birch doesn't do any harm to those big spruces, and there's still enough room for this little one to grow up. And then we can just come back here a few years from now when it's maybe gained some thickness and cut it out then for the future years. Another thing that's good to know when you're thinning through a piece of forest where you have different species of trees is to know the different species and what kind of environment they like to grow in. And here the birches and the spruces are different in that the birch needs a lot of light to grow in, and spruce can actually grow in the shade reasonably well. Not too much of it, but it can come as a secondary type of tree underneath an existing canopy if it's not too dense. And so therefore it works well to have the birches with the spruce underneath. But it is a more labor-intensive system, and it's not easy to cut down the taller birch trees without damaging some of the spruce trees.
Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this and saw a little bit how we work, and that you will benefit from my brother's experience and knowledge there. Now we have to work through this whole forest step by step, and this is not really how most forestry management is done in Sweden. We have the opportunity here to go in quite often with a light footprint, and usually there are machines that come in and they take it apart much more. We do it a little differently here, as you have seen. So I hope you enjoyed this, found this helpful, and stay tuned for more forestry videos. Check out this playlist that I link right here, where we gather most of the forestry videos from our channel. So I will see you in the next video. Thanks for joining us today. Bye bye.
Bye.